honestly, I never talk to anyone when I'm in bars and other places. Usually the person kind of with my book or my drawing or whatever. And for some reason, from the universe, we spoke and it was really, really, but on top of it, I just absolutely fell in love with Brooke and like her energy. We were very yin and yang. So there's a lot we have in common and a lot that I think we complement. But it definitely has been a journey, a little bit of the unknown. As you mentioned, I had surgery about 7 years ago when I was 40. So if you can do the math, I'm now 47.
And my husband encouraged me to turn it into a proper business. And then I went with him to Colombia where he was speaking, and we went to a whiskey bar where he was visiting with a student of his. In walked one of the most beautiful women. It was very hush hush, and something happened that pretty much crashed and burned my life.
Welcome to What Beauty Founders Don't Know, a podcast formerly known as Jumpstart. Here, women-led, early-stage beauty brands learn counterintuitive insights to accelerate their profitability and revenue to $20 to $50 million and even $100 million without spending a fortune on ads, influencers, and reckless distribution. With your host, Rohit Banota, ex-P&G and founder of Toronto-based Jump Accelerator. Together, let's create a more conscious, humane, and beautiful planet. A woman's world. Don't forget to subscribe, click the bell notifications, and leave a review.
Hey, Brook and Evelyn, I welcome you to What Beauty Founders Do Not Know podcast, which is all about what is it that early stage beauty founders do not quite know or get to know a bit late to turn around the ship, so to say. So we try to offer counterintuitive insights, and you will answer from your own experience with JUSTUS SKINCARE. And for all my listeners, let me try my best to introduce very briefly Brook and Evelyn, and then it'll be over to them. They'll tell you in detail their stories and how two women in Connecticut met in a whiskey bar, which is how these two women came together. Brook is the founder and chief alchemist of JUSTUS SKINCARE and is the author of the memoir Nothing to Write Home About. And she is supporting women who suffer from domestic violence, victims of domestic violence. And she blends her formulations in skincare with the same passion. She has experience in marketing and charitable community work. And she loves tennis and has a dog that I often see on Instagram. I think it's a lab, but I'm not sure. She'll clarify. And Evelyn is the co-founder and chief of all things at JUSTUS SKINCARE. She's a veteran of NYC ads and PR industry, a self-proclaimed skincare junkie. Her passion for finding skincare solutions at a very young age led her to work with the biggest beauty brands on the planet. She's a hiker. She loves to travel. She trains people on yoga, and she's a painter. And right now, she's beating cancer for the second time round. So over to you, Brook and Evelyn. Let's start with your stories. You can tell your stories separately or together, whichever way you deem fit. And how did you come together? And anything else you want the listeners to know about you and JUSTUS SKINCARE to get us started.
Thanks. Hi, Rohit. Thanks for having us on here.
So my story is I had a few earlier careers in the film industry and in the nonprofit space. And when I turned 60, I started being concerned about my skin and shopping here and there. And when I turned 65, I got on the edge of freaking out. And I went and spent about $600 on a little bag of skincare. And it was very exciting, but it did absolutely nothing. So a friend of mine said to me, "You've always wanted to be a formulator. Why don't you go back to school and learn how to do it, and then just do it, make your own?" So that's exactly what I did. And when I was 68, I started formulating for myself and my friends and didn't mean to turn it into a business. But the moms of dogs are very dedicated to their skin, and they bought a lot of product from me. And my husband encouraged me to turn it into a proper business. And then I went with him to Colombia where he was speaking, and we went to a whiskey bar where he was visiting with a student of his. And in walked one of the most beautiful women, and she was the only other woman in the place. And she sat next to me. We started talking. It turned out we were both from Connecticut. We were in this sort of whiskey bar on the Upper West Side. And she told me that she was in big beauty and had worked on all of these brands and had just gone out on her own. And I plucked up all my courage and I said, I'm much too small for you to have any interest in whatsoever, but here's my card. If you have any interest in taking a look at what I'm doing, I'd love to talk to you. And then off she vanished to sit with a date. And I convinced her to come out and meet me in California, send her products, and the rest is history.
Perfect. And before we hear from Evelyn, I want my listeners to know that Justice Skincare blends the only climate proof skincare brand on the planet with neobotanicals and ingredients from across different harsh climates of the world. I got that right because I think I worked with you on the brand.
You totally worked with us on the brand. That's the thing that you did. It was so special and spectacular. We would be nowhere without that.
That's very nice of you. By the way, you spill the beans. I always thought you were like 50 plus, like 50, 52.
No, I'm 70 plus, Rohit. That was a few years ago. That's why I went to all this trouble to do this, because nothing worked.
Exactly.
So,
Perfect. No, love your story, Brooke. And we'll get into more details, what inspires you, etc., beyond the ingredients in the skincare for yourself. You wrote a book. But over to you, Evelyn. Tell us your background. And then she said that you're the most beautiful woman that she had met that day.
Well, I think I was the only woman in the bar also. But yes, I think Brooke is absolutely gorgeous and glorious, and she is like a Benjamin Button. But a little bit from my perspective, so Brooke teed it up really well, which was that I had always loved skincare, just absolutely loved it. And as like a young kid, I was working in an esthetician's office and just playing with skincare, and it was my personal passion. And I was really fortunate to turn it into part of my work, my career. I was in PR and marketing for about 18 years, and big beauty and beauty personal cares were really big part of my focus. And I had the great pleasure and honor of working with a lot of really big brands out there. It was also a very intense and challenging career just in general in marketing, and it was very consuming, and I was very kind of burned out around the time that I met Brooke. So agency life, New York City life, it's people living in it know it just is its own ecosystem of like intensity, and I really needed a break from all of it. And I became a little bit disillusioned in that kind of big beauty world because I was so excited to work with the brands. And when I saw things that were out there, it really just felt very watered down, very turnkey, not the quality that I was looking for. And one thing Brooke and I always talked about was I had product closets full of all kinds of free product, and I never used any of it because I just didn't believe in the ingredients and the amount that was put in there and kind of the way things were marketed and put forward. And I was obsessed with skincare, and I was always searching for really amazing, interesting botanical brands, things that would be active, that would work for my skin, but also repair it and make it glow and feel really good and know that it was working. And nothing in my free product closets was doing that. So when I went in with Brooke, I was searching for what I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. As you kind of alluded to, I'd had a little bit of like a health kind of thing that made me pause and reflect on who I was and where I was going, and really change around my life in, I think, a very positive way, where I became much more open to possibilities, much more relaxed, and really interested in having like kind of a different chapter and a different type of career. And that was like the second that I walked in and met Brooke. Honestly, I never talk to anyone when I'm in bars and other places, usually the person kind of with my book or my drawing or whatever. And for some reason, from the universe, we spoke, and it was really, really wonderful. And when I got the products initially that she had been formulating, it was like, wow, this is just amazing. And I've been working for all these companies that like aren't producing anything like this. But on top of it, I just absolutely fell in love with Brooke and like her energy. We were very yin and yang. So there's a lot we have in common and a lot that I think we complement on each other. And we just really started kind of loving working together. And I think at one point it was like, let's just like do this. I think she actually said to me, okay, so what do you want to do? Like, what are you looking for? Let's just like get there. And I said, I want
no,
to.
I said to her, I said, Evelyn, you may as well face it. What you really want to do is be my partner. So let's just get on with it and do it.
Yeah. So we did, and here we are, and excited to have this conversation and, echo what Brooke said, which is that, right, you're a really big part in the kind of early stage of identifying the unique qualities that we existed and finding that voice and helping to articulate it out to the public. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. Now, yeah.
Rohit, I just have to tell one Rohit story. The day that Evelyn told me about you and we were deciding whether to go with you, we were taking a walk in the date plantation that's behind my house in the desert of California. And when she was explaining what you might do and helping us find our lane, it was just so like what we were doing, which was walking through the trees and trying to figure out like the best way to hike through these trees. And that's what you did for us.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have to say you're one of my most favorite people that I worked with. Of course, like you said, Evelyn was super beautiful. She still is. I'd never seen someone who is so fit. First time I spoke to Evelyn, like I was looking at her and I was thinking maybe she's 25, 30. Like I was not able to wrap my head around. But anyways, it was a fun ride. I absolutely loved it. And I think your brand is absolute cult. And I know that you're focusing on getting everything right. You don't want to scale up straight away. You want to cultivate high loyalty. You want to get extremely high traction. But since I worked with you, I know how much people who buy your products love them. It's a brand that is already the talk of the town within the niche that you are trying to focus on. But I'm extremely confident that you will go places. And I'm not sure how many places you want to go to, but at least those where you source your ingredients from, right? Perfect. Awesome. So let's move on to the next question. Evelyn, if you want, you can tell us a little bit about your health concerns. If you feel okay, you can share. Right now, you're working with Justice Skincare. You're also doing other assignments. And then you are appearing on this podcast in spite of the fact that you're going for treatments, right?
I am. Yeah. I'm very happy to speak with it and always connect with anyone who's facing similar things. I have a form of like a low grade cancer that required, it's actually not dissimilar to what's been reported in the news with Princess Kate, but it required a surgery, abdominal surgery that happened in December, and follow up with some preventative chemo that I've been working through. And I think it's not necessarily like a unique story. Everyone has something that they are handling within their body and kind of dealing with. For me, it's ensuring that I stay healthy and kind of stay the course along the path. But it definitely has been a journey, a little bit of the unknown. As you mentioned, I'd had surgery about 7 years ago when I was 40. So if you can do the math, I'm now 47. And everything was easy and good after that. And this required going back and doing that surgery. But the interesting or challenging part for me was that the chemo part was a little bit new and completely unknown because everyone responds in such different ways. And what had been interesting is that we've also been talking to a lot of our customers who have been recovering from radiation, chemotherapy, other things, because it has a tremendous impact on the skin. So Brooke and I had already been having a lot of conversations about just the journey, the needs, the things that help women along the way, which I've been able to incorporate in. And I'll have to say it has been a hard journey in some ways because chemo is more difficult than I anticipated, given that it was kind of preventative and that I feel like I generally had been on a path of really taking good care of myself. So I started in like a nice place. But it's also been something where I'm so blessed and lucky to have the business partner that I have, who has been like beyond supportive and been able to flex where I've needed flex, like love where I've needed love, but also just like work with me along the way. And it's made it so I've been able to pretty much, I think, as much as I can, like stay on top of all the business details. It's a matter of
Evelyn at 80% is like most people at 120%.
It's interesting. It's kind of in this hybrid world. It's made it accessible where you're able to kind of balance the schedules in such ways that you have days where maybe you're not as good and days where you're a little bit stronger, but it's like a different world we live in where we're able to move forward. But yeah, I'm always happy to talk about it and take questions in any capacity.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, you're very brave, I have to say. Somebody who's going through these treatments, and of course with Brook's support, you're doing it. She's helping you out and she's very considerate. In spite of all that, I think it's very brave of you to keep on working with Justice Skincare. I've seen you on social media, even before your treatments. I had a very severe cough in January first week. I thought I'm going to die. And 2 friends who did not take my phone calls at 12 in the night, I cut ties with them. I was like, man, I'm going to die and you're not even responding to my phone calls. What you are doing is very, very brave. Love it. Over to you, Brooke. Tell us, you wrote that book and then connect it to Justus Skincare, like how that inspired.
Yeah, I'll tell you the book and connect it to Justice Skincare. But I have to tell you, when when it was first discovered that she was going to go through chemo, I did a deep dive into what can help with hair loss. And so I decided that it would be a really, really great idea to make her an onion juice hair mask, which required like 5 pounds of onions being peeled and then being like that, like you would use a lemon squeezer, not a blender, but like you have to squeeze the juice out of it and then push it through cheesecloth. And I had on goggles, my eyes were running, my nose was running. I wrapped it up, sent it to her, and she's like, oh my God, this is the most like hideous thing in the whole world. But and it didn't work.
It didn't work?
If you
Did not work.
watch the social, you'll see. But this is actually, I think I'm adjusting to it. I'm actually wearing a wig right now, so I did go through the hair loss, the eyebrow loss, and the eyelash loss. But fortunately, I've got a lot of our products to help keep my scalp nice and good, and my skin's actually stayed pretty good.
Yeah, we worked on the stuff for the skin. The chemo skin was way more successful than the hair loss. Way more successful.
Very tricky. But I appreciate the onions. I did smell like onion for like 2 weeks.
So the book, I wrote a memoir about my time when I was in my 20s and I came to Los Angeles to be part of the film industry. I wanted to be a writer, and I fell in with the stand-up comedy crowd that was surrounding the Comedy Store at that time, and fell madly in love with a stand-up comedian, and who also happened to be a Playgirl centerfold. So there was that. And he introduced me to the wild world of cocaine and comedy. And of course, I loved both. Absolutely nowhere good. He was a real sort of Jekyll and Hyde, and there was hitting and beating and domestic violence involved at a time when there wasn't even the term domestic violence. That was back in a time where you wouldn't tell your friend or anybody. It was very hush hush. And something happened that pretty much crashed and burned my life, which I won't tell because it'll wreck the book. But I pulled myself together and started over again. And I'm not quite sure what the connection to skincare is, except that I've always really wanted to have a company where we could build out the intern program and the giving back part of it and the scholarship part of it, so that somewhere along the line I might be able to work with young women and encourage them to leave the first time anybody lays a hand on you. There is no second chance. It just gets harder. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own business and grow it.
Wow, that's very touching. I think it's now women are coming out with such stories. So it's thanks to people like you who have raised awareness. By the way, I don't think I've ever had Coke, but I've written 3 jokes and I'll send you one of them. If you approve them, maybe I'll go on stage one day. Usually, beauty founders are motivated by exit or becoming a 9-figure beauty brand beyond making a difference. What motivates you to work on Justus Skincare? A lot of beauty founders are motivated by exit. They might start for the love of skincare, etc. But once they realize how hard it is, and I've seen this pattern, they eventually start thinking that I'm going to exit for an 8-figure check. What motivates you? Like, is it an exit? Is it becoming a high 8-figure or 9-figure beauty brand? Or is there something else that motivates you to keep working and making a difference to your audience?
I love being in business. I love the idea of being a mogul. I love playing with the big kids. And I don't really think about exiting. That's not a strong point. Evelyn is the MBA, and she thinks much more strategically and long range. And I think much more about the playground. I would like to be a company that can manufacture in America and do it well and do it with quality. That motivates me. I am motivated every day by the belief that if we make a good product, that people will come back and buy it again and again. I'm not motivated by how much money can we make, because in the beauty industry, as everybody knows, there's plenty of money to be made. And it is possible to make a phenomenal, fantastic product without ripping people off. I love it.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I see something similar. Even in my career in the past, I've never focused on money. If you do something you love, if you do really good quality, money always follows, right? Like we had pressure all the time in business, which was like, bring X amount. I'm going to set a goal and I'm going to say we're another 2 million in revenue. We're bringing all these things. And anytime people are driven by that, they never hit it because it's nothing. Like if you love it, if you do it right, if you put the efforts in, all of that stuff follows, right? And the things that motivate me now are, do I like waking up and enjoying my life? Do I like the people that I work with? Am I proud of the things that we do? And we have created such a unique, interesting product. We have customers who are so lovely and kind and excited, right? Order 18 times, 10 times, 19 times, right? Share success with us, have dinner with us, right? Send me messages to check in to see how I'm feeling. People I've never met have seen a post, will write in a month and just say, hey, I'm just checking in. It's so lovely. And one of my favorite things ever is when we are bi-coastal. So I'm still in New York and everything that we do is based out of the West Coast and in California. And I come out often. And when I walk in to see Brook, it's like, there's like the smell in our R&D area, our lab area, that is just all of our ingredients, which is honestly the most like glorious, amazing, comforting smell. And for me, like going in, and I think Brooks at the playground is totally right. Like coming in and she has like a box of stuff because there's always like some interesting new thing that we're playing with. And it's like, I'm wearing like a tank top and whatever, because I'm smothering myself in cream and smelling that smell and having like a chat with someone I love. And it's like, we get to do it, but we also like help people. That's like such an amazing motivation. And as I said, the rest follows.
Love it.
I, Yeah, I just want to say, because a lot of times women don't want to talk about money and it's not ladylike to want money. I love money. I want a lot of money. To make no mistake, I am save the world, peace, love, and scholarships, but money's power. And I think in this world, the more power good people have, the better.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yes.
Love it. I'm very curious. How much is a flight ticket from New York to LA? Because every second week I see you traveling to Los Angeles. And I'm like, then you're in London, right? Like third week you're in London doing yoga. And I'm like, either she's making a lot of money or maybe the tickets are like she buys them in bulk.
I don't know if it's any of those, but we do what we need to do at every point to make everything work. We're super nimble, we're super scrappy, and I spend money on the things that are important.
Love it. Love it.
And travel and spending time with my business and my partner is incredibly important and satisfying. I don't know what else I'd spend my money on. It's like back when I was in the days of the big career and all those things, it's what people spent it on. It was just crazy stuff. And I like spending it where I get the most passion.
Love it. Love it.
We spend 10 days, at least a quarter together. And during that time, we have this whole agenda of what we're going to do. And the stuff that we do when we're together is really different than the stuff that we do when we're on two different coasts. So whatever the plane ticket costs, it's so worth it.
I agree. Now let's get to Just a Skincare. Like how you each of you give your own take on how it's the cult brand that focuses on climate-based skincare solutions, and how you source these neobotanicals and all the amazing ingredients. From where do you get these? What kind of climates does this skincare apply to? What happens to skin in those climates, and how your product formulations help people? So either of you could start.
All right. I can give it a shot. Oh, no, there you go, Brooke.
Go,
Yeah.
Evelyn.
Right. All right. So we'll probably each give slightly different versions on it. But climate-proof skincare, we talk about the idea that there is so much power in the plant and natural world around the globe that has been used for centuries, that has been revered by shamans, that is reparative, glow-making, restorative. And there's so much new technology and actives, which also are inspired by and drawn from the plant and botanical world, right? Just innovated and bettered in the lab. And we really look at, there's a lot of harsh effects that happen to your skin in any environment. And that doesn't mean harsh environments, right? Anywhere that you live, from the subway, the pollution, the wind, the cold, the hot, the rain, right? Everyone has like an effect on their skin. And even their internal, there's an effect on their skin. And there's so much power to take from the natural world out there and harness that and bring it forward. When we first started talking about it, it was like, imagine a lot of these ingredients that we use. They are existing and thriving in their environments in such an amazing way. So when you look at like desert plants, even like aloes of the world, right? They're thriving in areas that are totally arid, and they are able to retain water in a different way that makes them just like exist and plump and full. And if you harness that and use that for yourself, like imagine the results. So that's a little bit of it, and I'll let Brooke give the pithier version.
Rohit, I was reading in, I think it was the New York Times the other day, about this big story about this gorilla that had an injury and took a plant and smashed the plant and then put the juice on its injury on its face, and then picked up the mushed plant and pressed it on the injury. And people were so shocked that the gorilla knew what would work to help his injury. And I thought, duh, this is what we know at Just Skincare. We know what an active botanical really means and what it does to your skin. And yes, they're harder to get and they're more expensive, and there can be all sorts of supply chain issues, but the world's a big place. And if you can't get something from Brazil, then you probably can get it from Africa. We originally started with the idea of creating products for women who were traveling, who were professionals and business travelers and jetting. At the time, Evelyn was spending time in Dubai, and she'd be like London, Dubai, Italy, New York. And so we had the idea that wouldn't it be great if we could make a product that woman could take wherever she went? And then we expanded on that idea to include women have their own individual body climates that, depending on where you are in your age, are sometimes warmer or colder than others. So we just wanted to deliver that. And that was something that you really helped us identify as a tribe that we could start attracting.
Love it.
Yeah, I think just one thing there is that working in skincare in a long time and experiencing it, people still get really stuck into, I have X skin, right? Like someone told you 25 years ago that you have dry skin or sensitive skin. And Brooke actually has some really great points about sensitive skin. We've got some videos on those, or maybe it not being so sensitive, but other factors. But I think people get stuck into these things, and skin is very dynamic. Who you are, where you are, what stage of your life. I mean, where you are, so many terms. Where are you emotionally? Where are you physically? Where are you age-wise? Where are you hormone-wise? Like all these things have effect. And so if you really understand the ingredients and understand your skin and get comfortable enough to play with different things and learn it, you can kind of become a dynamic player within it yourselves. And we do this to simplify for people and help through that. But what we found in people's journey is that as their skin improves, they get excited and they start to get more engaged and they start to play more and use more things. Because again, that old feeling of like, I'm going to log into a beauty app and I'm going to say, I've got this coloring and whatever, and my skin is X. It's just not really accurate. Like we aren't built that way. We're much more dynamic.
That's amazing. I have to say, you are one of the best kept secrets when it comes to skincare. And the fact that you source these ingredients from Brazil, Africa, and you look for particular types of specialized ingredients that will help skin counter the modern societies beyond just climate, whatever people are experiencing, the stress on their skin due to the modern lifestyle. That's just amazing. So just for my listeners, tell us, how do you formulate? Like you have your own lab, right?
I have an R&D lab, so that's my playground. And in that playground, I work on creating formulas on a small scale. And then what I informally call a guinea pig club, the focus group, try them out. And when we really think that we're onto something, then we have a advising chemist and we work with him. And then when that formula is made to scale, then we take that to our manufacturing partner. And that's how that works. We like to own our formulas.
That's brilliant. I love it. What a process. Also take us to the sourcing. How, like, or even before sourcing, how do you study? Do you read books? Like, how do you get the process kick started to then, and then you get to know, oh, there's this ingredient.
You have to be wildly curious and totally obsessed with stopping aging in its tracks. There's nothing that encourages a woman more to get education about ingredients than watching the years tick by. I did a lot of study, a lot of research, a lot of experimenting. There was a time when we thought about going down the CBD road, when we thought that would be just a fabulous ingredient. We thought, wow, this is it. But it proved to be complicated at the time for all sorts of reasons that you can imagine, from banking to interstate. But working with that ingredient got me into the idea that maybe there were other botanical ingredients that were equally interesting. So then I got into the shamans and the healers, but also we're very interested in what science is doing and who the great companies are and the ones that do care about the planet and the farmers and the sustainability of the ingredients.
Yeah, if I can just compliment Brooke in that she is one of the most curious, like, she is an avid learner of everything. She consumes like print papers, newspapers, digital stuff, like social. She's just always like reading, looking, learning, like sharing. So I think a lot of it just comes from experience. I think there's some people out there who just, there's nothing new, right? It's all experience kind of in different ways. And she is really smart about getting experience across all of these different of life and other things, because you never know when it comes to you. And we're very open to like listening to people too and hearing. And both of us in different ways like hunt things down. So if there's something, so there was an ingredient of something that we haven't launched yet that will come. And so I'm not going to tease anything, but it is not available in the US. And the amount that Brooke was able to track information down, track people down, find them, pass it over to me. I then went into my network of like entrepreneurs and founders that I'm part of, found contacts who spoke like the language. We're on like WhatsApp, we're on these things, finding things to get stuff in. You have to have persistence and tenacity to be able to get some of these things, because there's always just the oddest roadblocks. There's always like roadblocks where you just never imagine them in such ways. And if you're not someone who's like nimble, flexible, comfortable, and willing to like think out the side of the box, talk to whoever you need to talk to, change courses, then this is not a great business to be in for you.
Outside of being a teeny business, a farmer's market fair business, once you step beyond that and you're trying to become a much bigger brand, the minute you step beyond that, it's complete murkiness, as if there's a conspiracy to not let you into that world of big beauty. And Evelyn and I we both rebel against the sort of patriarchy of big beauty and the generational insistence on convincing women that we are too stupid to know how to take care of our skin or what to put on it, and how no matter what they feed us, we will ultimately blame ourselves. We'll say, oh, I've got such sensitive skin. I've got such red skin. Oh, it's my bad. And not demanding more. That's one of the motivators, I think, to find the good stuff.
Love it. That's such an amazing story. You spoke about shamans and healing, etc., then vetting it with an active chemist on the science of it. Can you take us through one product of yours and the entire process, and in the end, what it delivered, the solution it provided, which is your hero product and absolutely loved by your consumers, your fans?
Sure. So the most challenging bring to market product that we've had is one that I started working on at the very beginning. We had gotten into these Brazilian butters and oils, and they were very obscure. And I didn't really know enough at the time to make a proper emulsion. I was just studying. It was at the very beginning. So I thought I could make an anhydrous product that's all butters and oils, and perhaps make a balm that, given what all of these butters and oils do, if I put them together, if I worked with all their lipid profiles and got it just the way that I wanted, so it would be fast absorbing enough, there would be pieces of it that would speak to collagen production and elasticity and all of that. I had these wonderful ideas for what this product was going to do. And it was going to be super easy because it was just going to involve melting. No big deal. So I started, and I watched all sorts of people doing it on YouTube, and snappy, easy. So I started melting and pouring, and it would always get gritty. And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And I changed everything deep. I didn't want to use anything. I just wanted it to be oils and butters. And I couldn't do it. It wouldn't give a smooth feeling. It was always gritty. So about that time, we met our wonderful chemist, and he gave me an idea, which was an ingredient idea. And I tried that, and it seemed like it was improving, but I still wasn't happy with it. I liked it, but I didn't love it. So I started doing more research, and I realized that there was a difference between bringing something to set at room temperature versus chilling it and doing it quickly. So I asked the chemist about that. I said, is that a real thing? And he said, try it. Some people think it's a real thing. So I tried experimenting with putting it in the freezer for a couple of hours and then taking it out. And I guess I got too impatient at one point, took it out. It wasn't set. There was about a quarter of it that was set on the top. And I took a stick blender and blended it, and went out to dinner, went to sleep, came back and looked at it the next morning. And it was this creamy, fabulous substance. It was just really great. And all the lipids were doing what they were supposed to do. And it wasn't as greasy as it had been before. And that was great. And so we were little then, and we were making our own products. But when we got to the point of asking a manufacturer to make it for us, they treated us as if we were good little girls that had done the very best we could, but we really didn't know the first thing about manufacturing skincare. So they said, don't you worry, you sit back, we'll show you how to do it, we'll send you our first iteration. And so they did a hot pour. And the hot pour came back exactly like it did when I made it, which was gritty. And you have to keep in mind that we're an e-commerce brand. So when our things ship, they can be really hot and really cold, and there needed to be some stability to it. And the way that I made it is quite stable. We didn't go with them. And it took us a long time to find a partner that said, I don't know about that. Maybe we could try it. There were people that I sat with that said, well, we can't do that. It would tie up our machine for too long. We can't have it. Absolutely not. We've got other brands we're making for. We have finally found someone that has been willing to go to the mat for us and admit that, no, they don't know, but they'll figure it out, and they'll figure it out with us. We've had to kiss a lot of frogs on the way to making a really nice anhydrous balm.
And what is it called? What's the name?
It's called Condition.
Condition. Wow.
Yeah.
Two girls, like you said, beating one of the biggest manufacturers in creating stable formulations, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. What is it that you have learned with Justice Skincare, where you want to impart wisdom on the business side of things to other founders? You source ingredients that have worked very well in climates around the world, and they are an inspiration, and also they are inside the formulation to help people deal with the modern stresses of modern lifestyle, etc. But is that the core distinguishing element of your brand which is distinct from any other brand on the planet? This is something that nobody on the planet does.
So I don't know about anybody else's brands except the ones that are available. I think what makes our brand different is the percentages of the active ingredients that we use. Because one of the markets that we deal with are postmenopausal women. We have a lot of over 50, over 60, and upwards. So it's very hard to fool that kind of skin with a product that you've just walked the active by, where you've just dropped a few drops, a little whisper in. You can fool them once, but they're not going to come back again. So
yeah, if I can give you two little like anecdotes just from my background in kind of marketing with the big beauty. You're not naming any brands because honestly, it's basically all of them that are owned by like holding companies. But the first thing is when we would get a new product, right, we would say, great, we can do something to market this. We'll go on social. We'll talk about whatever. You have an ingredient on the bottle. There's a picture of it. I'm going to talk about the ingredient. Legal would run over and say, don't talk about that ingredient. There's not enough of it in there that we can talk about it. Oh. But it's a picture on the front. And you say the word, and yeah, but you can't talk about it. We don't have anything that says about the benefits. So that's how much ingredient is in there. Literally can't talk about it or else they would get sued. The other thing is, Brooke mentioned like the marketing side, it is hard to find the indie brands. And obviously there's been more of a voice now. As the market evolves, it's still difficult because when Meta, Facebook first started as like a marketing channel, you could spend literally like $50, $75, and you could see results. And small brands were like, this is amazing. Let me go on and I'll spend a little bit of money. And I get this little piece, right? Everyone else is owning billions of dollars and I'll get this little piece and I'm happy and they're happy. And then the bigger brands were like, oh, I want to advertise on there too. And they started advertising. Well, now brands that I was working with were spending, say you have like your budget, you're starting and you're like, I've got $500, $1,000, $5,000 a month to spend on Meta, which is crazy, but right, I have this. The big brands I've worked with were spending $100,000, $200,000 in a single month. So for independent brands to be able to go on, and if you have these platforms, the second they start to evolve, all of a sudden the brand's coming in and you're spending $100 and they're spending $100,000. No wonder that the ad you're getting served on Instagram is, 100 times to 1 the big brands. And the more you see that, you end up doing that. And then you go, you get it. It may or may not work for you, probably doesn't. You're disappointed. You try something else, or honestly, you give up a little bit. You lose a little bit of faith in the industry and you move on. So that's been a challenge. I know we'll get into the advice, but that's been a real challenge for all of us out there because the second a new path opens, TikToks, other things like that, and you start to understand it, you start to get in there, the same situation occurs. It's really tricky.
And then what happens, Rohit, is that once the indie brand gets enough money together to spend enough to get a wider audience, then they're bought. And the minute they're bought, they do what Evelyn was talking about, saying, oh, you don't really need that.
I agree.
You don't need that.
I agree. No, you're absolutely right. I can vouch for a fact because I scan Ulta, Sephora, Detox Market, Credo, etc. All the specialty beauty retailers, I scan them on a quarterly basis, if not more frequently. I don't think I've seen any other brand in skincare, in the specialty beauty retailer game, who does what you do. So I've not seen this because I just did an analysis on Sephora's entire skincare and Ulta's skincare category. There's not a single brand who does what you do. But I'm absolutely with you that they have the coffers, they have the budget. People sees what they will buy, right? If they do not even see you, if you're not in front and center. But that's why I'm pretty sure you will. Eventually, you are getting there step by step, and your tribe is going to help you get there. Perfect. What's your biggest learning from Justus Skincare, which can help other beauty founders? What is that? I love the fact that the learning that you gave, Brooke, which was about the formulation that nobody knows, right? It's similar to, I know we're focusing on beauty, but it's like Steve Jobs, like people who have come before you. He said this, they are not necessarily smarter than you. It's not like somebody else is smarter than you. So you can, like you said, you figured out something on your own, which a big contract manufacturer could not. So that's a great learning. Tell me your biggest learning. You can go separately, one learning from each of you, which can help other beauty founders.
Go ahead, Evelyn.
Sure. I think there's probably two things. I'll be pretty quick about them. But the first is Beauty, you have to be comfortable with the fact that, unlike other things when you're an entrepreneur, everything has to be done well in beauty and skincare. So I work with I'm connected to a lot of founders and a lot of people. And when you work on like tech and other things like that, you can have like a pretty crappy website, right? But like if you have a good offering, a B2B, other things like that, like you can make money. In skincare and beauty, you have to have check mark to everything. Beautiful website, beautiful bottles and packaging, good product inside, smart marketing, right? Like everything. There's not a place that you can be weak. Whereas again, if you're in other industries, there's probably, if there's 10 things you need, there's probably do 6 well. Skincare beauty, you have to do like all 10 well. The other thing that was the learning for me that is just so bizarre is that there really is no like end-to-end place that helps you with some of the back end pieces. And like we spent like literally so many months trying to figure out our bottles. We have glorious bottles, beautiful bottles and jars. But to figure ones out that like you can get to you, that have the quantity you need, that have like bottles and jars that match, that have lids, right? Sometimes you just can't go to one place. Doesn't it seem like in today's world that you could go somewhere and be like, I want this jar and this bottle, and I want them to have white lids and not have ridges, and I want the pumps to also be white, and they'd be like, great. But it like doesn't work that way. And so you're going to spend so much time on the most random rabbit chases that are totally frustrating and totally unexpected. So the thing where you're like, hey, no problem, I got the bottles, talk to you in 2 hours, becomes 3 months. There's other things that are much faster. So I think you, again, just have to be prepared that like there's a lot of phone calls, research, and things that you have to make, and things that feel like they should be systems.
That's such a genius insight, I have to say. I'm absolutely with you on those. Yeah, Brooke.
Evelyn and I are a bootstrapped company. We rely on each other. It's us. So if there's something that needs to be done, we have to figure out how to do it. There was a time when we realized that we needed really good shots. So Evelyn learned how to be a photographer. She literally did that. I would say the biggest learning that I've had is the value of a partner, that you can know a lot of things, but you can't know everything, and you can't be good at everything, and you can't overestimate the value of doing business with the right person. It's a marriage and nothing to be gone into quickly. The other thing is, if you want it done right, you either have to do it yourself or take the time to find somebody that has the same ethics and values that you do, which is, it's hard. It's a hard slog through a bog of people that have profit as their motive and are too stupid to realize that there's much more profit to be made when you make a good product than a crappy product. And that's sort of sad.
I agree. Like, I love it. Brooke, this is the reason that I do what I do. Like, apart from the other reasons, the fact that women take on these mainstream beauty companies, right? Because I don't think anyone can understand beauty like a woman does. I have spoken to women from across the globe, and whether they have gone to school or not, like somebody in Africa, maybe, or in New Zealand, who's not even gone beyond grade 10, what do you call high school here? But she can talk beauty. Like, you speak to her and she will tell you everything, what is wrong with the products, what she wants, makeup, skincare, everything. So I think that's why I love it, like how women have the understanding. So even though you're bootstrapped, you understand the category way better than people in the corporate boardrooms ever can. And that's why you are the source of innovation, right? Amazing insights, Brooke and Evelyn. I loved it. I think those were really great nuggets of wisdom for any beauty founder who's looking to, whether she's struggling or she wants to launch a brand. What is the ultimate goal with Just a Skincare? And how much capability building and resource development do you think you need to get there? Like, what's your ultimate goal? Have you guys, I'm pretty sure because you're two, right? With me, it's just like me talking in my head with myself. But since it's two, you both together, you must sit together once in a year. Like, I'm assuming you must be sitting together once in a year. No? And then you decide where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years, what's your annual plan, how you're going to get there, etc., etc.
We are scaling and we want to grow and scale. We want to be not big beauty, but I'd say known beauty and set a different standard for what's acceptable and have people demand more and get more. But to do that, you need to have a presence, visibility, and a voice. As Brooke mentioned, both of us are ambitious and interested in growing this in a very big way. But I think on the flip side, we also both want to have lives that we like and good lives and good quality products. So you're always balancing that. I think every decision we've made has always been intentional and purposeful, and we've got big visions, but I think we also have been very flexible at each point along the way to say, is this going the right way? Do we want to go this path or this path? And you have to be comfortable constantly readjusting. I think when I feel someone who's like, I've got this one goal and this is it, it's really difficult because life and business takes you in different paths. And if you don't have a little bit of flexibility and fluidity, you're going to be hitting stings, and we try to float around them, right? Get limp and float around them. But the ultimate goal from, I think, both our perspectives is get big, real big.
My goal is to get big, have a sort of a side foundation where I can do the stuff that I love to do, which is working with young people and doing more of the creative. And I think to get there, our plan is to just keep doing what we're doing and funneling as much money as we can into the marketing piece of it. And yes, we've taken a while to create this little gem of a company, but Evelyn, coming from the big beauty industry as she has, knows what we need to be in order to move forward. There are many jumps that I would have made earlier, but it would have been a mistake. We weren't ready when we weren't pretty, when we had janky labels and funky jars. And I was happy going to the farmer's market and mixing oils for people. But Evelyn knew what a proper beauty business is. So we like to think that we're now more attractive to help than we ever have been before. And we're just now putting serious energy into our marketing and seeing what's working for us and what's not without blowing our total wad.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I didn't actually answer your second question, which Brooke started to very well, which is that we're always future planning. Brooke is amazing at future planning. She's always like, what's happening 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What conversations do I need to be having? But we're also planning now, right? Like you have to do both concurrently. Like, where are we now? Where are we going to be? What are we anticipating? When we have a certain hit that takes us to that next level, are we prepared to do it? If we're not prepared, which is okay because you're not going to be prepared, do you have an action plan, right, to handle it? So those are the conversations, the strategic conversations that we have quite often, which is like, where are we going? Where do we need to be? What are we doing in between that? Are we having those conversations? Are we lining up our future team? There's conversations about talking to investors and other things like that. And one of the pieces of advice that was given, which I think is really smart when you're thinking about doing like a formal like VC round or raise, is that a lot of people will go ahead and say, I'm going to start. Can you, Brooke, connect me to your investor friend, right? Like I saw you were connected on LinkedIn. Can you connect me? And you start doing that and you end up getting these little scattered things. You have this one-off conversations and nothing's purposeful. And the advice was really like, line up your army before you reach out to them, right? So go to your friends and say, hey, Brooke, you have this person. When the time is coming, when I'm ready, will you be able to introduce me? And when you do that, you can now have 50 or 100 people lined up. So when that moment's there, you're ready. And I think that was like really smart advice because a lot of us just get really excited and jump the gun and do that. But then you're shooting yourself in the foot. And I think if you translate that into this world, it's the same thing. Not analysis paralysis, not wait until it's perfect, because then you're also killing yourself that way. But there's a balance of like, line up all of your resources, know what they are, get them ready. So if you're thinking about bottles or whatever it is, talk to the 6 bottle companies, get them all, and know the bottles that can produce now and produce later. Get those relationships right, and or think about the ones you need later and start getting them warm so that when you go bigger, you're not figuring it out, you're just calling the person.
And the same is true for ingredients, because when you're just starting and you're tiny, there's only a few companies that offer tiny sizes of ingredients that you want to get your hands on as a formulator. but you better know what that ingredient actually is, what its proper trade name is. How can you go from 8 ounces over here to 80 kilos over there? And who is that supplier going to be? And how long are they going to take to get it to you? And you need to know that. You can't, when you jump too fast and you have some sort of success, say somebody says you should be in Costco. Well, you might lose that opportunity if you don't have the manufacturing capacity in place to deliver that. You can't say, oh, glad you like my bomb. I'm not quite sure how we're going to make 1 million of them. You need to know that. And even if you're not in bed with that particular manufacturer, you have to already have cultivated a relationship with that bigger organization. And ideally, you don't have to make a lot of manufacturing jumps, but there's so few manufacturers that have a small minimum order that you can actually work with as an emerging brand that almost certainly you're going to have to think beyond that. It's tough if you don't want to invest in actual equipment and start to become like a mini manufacturer, which is not a road I recommend going down. You have to be clever.
I have to say, you're hitting the nerve when it comes to the advice for scaling up. Because a lot of times, like Evelyn mentioned, founders are stuck in now. How do I get this thing done first? Let me just get this done. But I personally feel that and obviously there is a flip side, that there is a drawback, which I'll come to later. I feel that the early stage beauty founders do not know the exact roadmap it takes to reaching where they want to go. Like what all it takes, like from strategy to story to finding your tribe to retail to velocity, category development, culture, cash, planning, profits, right? Sourcing, ingredients, formulation, manufacture. So all of this is not known. Now, the flip side is, and so to your point, Brooke, thinking through ahead, and even Evelyn touched on it, I think is amazing, because usually founders, like, they see something working and they rest easy, like now everything's going to be fine. They don't know the 10 problems that await them at the end point. But the flip side is, before I was hired for a startup, the person who was hiring me told me, if you calculate the risk very well, you might not end up taking this opportunity. So if the beauty founders are told right at the start that this all is going to take for you to reach your dream, and still there's no guarantee. I love it when you said you will see something working, but you also got to think through. People don't understand that it takes both quality and quantity of effort. So sometimes we skew towards quality or we skew towards quantity. You need both. You need hell lot of effort and minimum acceptable quality. Perfect. No, love your inputs. I think these are such amazing inputs that go way beyond and which is amazing because you are not yet a $50 million or $20 million brand, but you are giving the exact insights that an early stage beauty founder needs. And I was already impressed by you both, right? I think Evelyn, like I said, from the first meeting, I was super impressed. I've never seen someone shooting that straight as Evelyn in my life. Like I always wondered, and this can go off record, I always wonder, does she ever let her hair down? Like, how does she relax?
I'll tell you something about Evelyn. I know she seems very tightly laced, but my dog is a very good judge of fun people. She likes almost no one. 5 people, maybe. When I went to pick Evelyn up at the airport in Los Angeles, when she first came out to meet my husband and my family, it was like a marriage, and like we were going to get married. My dog was in the car and she stuck her head through the seats and started licking and kissing Evelyn, a Labrador, 100-pound Labrador, and wanted to sit on her lap. And I was so stunned. My husband, my daughter were so stunned. And we thought that's good enough for us. So she is totally fun, but it's got to be the right time and the right place. She did not play in the big beauty industry by being a goof. She's a businesswoman.
She's a businesswoman.
He, on the other hand.
No, of course, you both complement each other. Yeah. I think it's her intent also. I can tell people who shoot straight, sometimes I get that feel. So I think it's the intent that counts, right?
I think people know when people genuinely like care and love them. I think that comes through. If you're a teacher or someone else and you're like a little bit tough for your business, but like you genuinely love what you do and love the kids, that comes back. Like I always felt like in business, I did get feedback that my first meetings were a little bit like intense, but then people realized that like I fought for them, I love them, I cared to them, was in it with everything. And when you feel that, I think that's what makes like really strong like teams. And
I think one of the problems that I face in these times is that people want help, but they want in a way that they want it. They want to be cuddled, and gone are the days when the mentor or the teacher would tell you what needs to be done and won't mince any words, right? Those days are gone.
you got to come be like Gordon Ramsay style. You got to come in and be like, this is the reality, right? Like face it and figure it out.
Rohit, the other piece of advice that I would share is that if you're a founder, early stage, if you don't like figuring things out, if you don't like solving problems, if you don't enjoy being a bit of a detective, then this is not the right industry. And while we both really have goals, what we really care about is what we're experiencing on a moment to moment, project by project level. I mean, it's the old thing. It's about the journey, and the destination's great, but I think we have more fun just sleuthing about and figuring out how to conquer the next roadblock that somebody puts in our way, because neither one of us like being told what to do or told we can't do something or it's not available. That engages us. So if a person thinks that they're going to get into the beauty business and in 6 minutes be doing pop-up shops and social and just is all about content and creative, no.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. I've spoken to founders who get a $2,000 grant and nothing else. No formulation, no need, and they're like, oh, I'm going to start a beauty business, do this, do that. They don't even know what lies ahead. So I'm absolutely with you. You need to figure it out, and you are teaching me, reminding me, reinforcing these learnings for me too, that how good you have to be at figuring out stuff, and that has to be like your nature. Like you have to be willing to try, learn, seek. Yeah, seeker. You have to be a seeker, right?
Things will go wrong always, like all the time, big things and like little things. And like you just can't get, honestly, I think the little things probably irritate me more than the big things. You just can't get that hung up on it. As I mentioned, like I came out of PR marketing stuff, and PR, it's a tough career. If I redid my life, I probably wouldn't pick it just because I don't know why I picked it. Wasn't naturally my ability. But the thing it did train me on is that no matter what you do, like it always goes wrong, and that's okay. It's about how you pivot and like where you go from there, right? There's so many events that we did where you get paid like $1 million to do an event, and everything's perfect, everything's set up, and the thing you never imagined is like the thing that's going to go wrong. And it's some stupid thing. It could be a huge thing where the keynote speaker you have just told you like they're not showing up, but it could be just like a really dumb thing where there's no tablecloths or something, but it changes everything and you've got to figure it out. I've been at events where someone's dress or something ripped and you run out and you buy them a new thing, or like you give them your dress or you put it on. Like it's going to happen. And anyone that ever talked to me on my team that would always say like, everything's set, we're all in order, whatever. I'm like, the thing you never imagine is the thing that's going to go wrong. So that's okay, right? You're going to get some weird bill you never imagined. You're going to realize you didn't have insurance when you need to have insurance, and now you need to buy it, and it's whatever. Or the bottles are going to come, and I don't know what, we got like a bunch of lids or something, and they're like the wrong size. It's going to happen. And if you can't deal with that, I don't know, life's pretty hard. But particularly, yes, you just got to be okay.
I agree. I think Murphy's Law, when he came up with those laws, maybe he was thinking of entrepreneurs. So
for sure.
I'm absolutely with you. But very well said. That I think no one would have said it better. My next question. We have a lot of divergent opinions in the indie beauty category. And that's also the source of innovation, right? People think differently. Whether it's natural, clean, organic, social issues, natural ingredients, certifications, different retailers having different clean programs, etc. Where do you stand? How do you navigate the early stage consumers and opinion leaders, especially those who disagree with you? Have you had people, whether somebody trolled you, every brand gets trolled. So without exception. So have you been trolled on Instagram along the lines of your claims, and how do you find comfort in the place you are at with your ingredients?
I'll pass this over to Brook, but just the one intro of we don't get trolled, but I will say that people use terms and don't understand us. And so Brooke has very good feelings about natural and that use of that word and how brands are using it. So I'll let her talk about that. But I think one of the challenges we have is more that people don't really understand the concepts of what clean is, what natural is, and other pieces. And that is confusing to other people versus trolling. But Brooke, do you want to share your thoughts on natural?
I'm not sure if this is speaking to your question, but the use of words like green and clean and natural versus words like organic or vegan, people don't really understand why those terms are different. That organic is an actual certification, that Leaping Bunny is a certification, that green means nothing. I could say we have a green, clean, natural brand, but it means nothing. So I'm not sure if that's what you were asking. And I don't really understand what being trolled is, but except having horrible things being said about you.
One thing I'll say is like an example of something where we'll get maybe called out, and I would say it's very subtle. Like we've had very lovely customers, is even at places we're going to sell in where they'll say, if you have a certain ingredient or you have a preservative, we can't sell. You can't, like, go home in your house and put honey and oatmeal together, put that in your face. Great. But I can't put that in a jar and sell that to you and have that be safe. So there's like a lot of confusion, and then people make really hard claims. I will never have a product that has X, but they don't have any of the research on what those ingredients are, or they'll see like a scientific name and they'll see a lot of letters and they'll say dirty, right? Science, dirty, like, and without even understanding it. That's really frustrating.
That's such an insightful comment, though. Because I've had other founders tell me that a lot of times buyers don't understand ingredients, influencers don't get ingredients, because obviously that's not their specialty, but they use heuristics. Like they will have certain framework in their mind. If it has this, then we won't take it, or it won't sell.
One of the things is the beauty business is a lot like an old Western. There's the guy in the black cowboy hat and the guy in the white cowboy hat. There's the good guy and the bad guy. And every few years, beauty elects a bad guy, whether it's methicone or it's silicone or it's parabens. There's always going to be that thing that has been decided is just terrible. Sometimes they're right and sometimes it's just silly. And then there's different groups that have ratings, and there's apps where you can take the back of your label and scan it, and the app will rate it for you. I think that's a bane of a lot of beauty companies, because just, for example, take silicone, take dimethicone. Try to tell a burn doctor that they can't use that ingredient in treating a burn and they're not going to be happy. But if it's used in a beauty product, you're going to have a certain piece of the market that's going to say, absolutely not. That's on my never list. It doesn't allow the consumer to do their own research. They're just going to say, okay, then we can't use that.
Just curious on this, Brooke. Does the doctor use it because he's using it only once to treat that burn? But the consumer, if it's in the product, she'll be using it more frequently compared to the doctor. Is that the reason? Do you think that we should leave it to the consumer to decide? Because I personally believe sustainability, health, safety, these are like supply side issues. Like they will never happen right if the supply side is not regulated.
Well, consumers don't understand how an ingredient deck works, for one thing. They don't know that things go from the greatest amount to the smallest amount until it gets to one. So they're really the victim of great marketing, not great formulating. And that's unfortunate. It's also an incredibly unregulated marketplace. It's like the Old West again. It's like the gold rush. Anybody can put anything together and pretty much say anything about it. And as long as they're fairly under the radar, there's no problem. That's starting to change with the new American FDA changes that are coming towards the end of this year. But of course, it'll take forever before they're actually enforced.
It's interesting because I do think that consumers should be educated and should know what questions to ask. But I also agree, I don't know if that was your point, or I'm saying that I don't think they should be the ones making a decision or making a hard line on like what is or not. I do think there's other regulations that should look in there, but you should be speaking with people who at least understand. I think people very quickly jump to something and to Brooke's point, like villainize it. And if I switch it over, and I was just thinking about the recent experiences I've had as soon as, people heard that I was going through chemo and kind of diagnosed, I got a lot of advice on what I should eat and shouldn't eat, what I should touch, what I shouldn't touch, and all these different pieces, right? And I thought for me, it was for me to look and learn and talk. And I spoke extensively I have beautiful doctors at Sloan. And I talked to a dietitian, integrated wellness, multiple people. And one of the things that was called out a lot was like turmeric. Be careful, don't have turmeric. It's going to interfere with the chemo. It's all these things, turmeric, all these things. Like, crazy. It's like a healing spice that's been around for like millennia. It's included in all these things. And when I talked to the dietitian, she was like, yeah, do you know how much turmeric like you would have to consume? Like, I'm not talking about getting an IV of turmeric, like literally like to put into your food. She's like, the volume of turmeric you have to consume to have any impact, right, at all, and like anything that you're doing is like so far away. So if you want to do a little type of, and this is just like a common thing where people hear this, jump it, and when you go online, you look at turmeric and like cancer, chemo, all these things, it's gonna be like, right? And then when you talk to people who are educated in it, there's a lot more information. Now, again, me as a consumer, I've talked to multiple people, I get that information, and then I process it and I pick the path that I want, and I might choose to use it and I might not. But at least I've had conversations and I'm kind of understanding it. And I think the frustrating part in any of these pieces is when you get that quick. We had a retailer who was interested in something and didn't want to take one product because it was something that they didn't understand. Even when we first launched on Amazon, we got an initial rejection on like one of our products because one of the ingredients has the word like ethanol in it. It's not ethanol. There's a lot of other letters. It is a totally different product. I'm from Greenwich, Connecticut. The word green is in there, but that is a different word. Greenwich is a different word than green. Amazon flagged it and was like, you have a hazardous product. It was all these things. We had to go through these regulations. And I talked to someone on the phone and they're like, you have ethanol. And I'm like, we do not. Like, that is bizarre. And then it's explaining it. But again, it's this thing where people see something and their bot obviously saw like a grouping of letters and didn't realize there was other letters. But it's tricky because people just have no attention span and jump at things right away.
I love it. That's such an amazing example. And you are absolutely right. The reality of the situation, the current times is that the consumer has to decide because there's no ideal solution right now. Ideally, we would love to have regulation and stuff where consumers can just use that to make decisions. But you're right. You have to decide for yourself. There's no other way out for any human being. That's in the end, like listen to everyone, but do what you think is right. And I think that's why you also discounted my advice, the stuff that I sent you, the oils, etc.
I think one thing that can help consumers is when they find a product that they like, they can go to the brand site and look at About Us. And if the company resonates with them, and then they can trust that company. They have to make sure that it's not sold. It's always a big surprise when you've been using something for years and then you use it again and it's just like terrible and you don't know why. But generally speaking, I think it's almost more important to research the company than the product, because they'll tell you we're vegan or we don't formulate with this. These are things that you won't find in our products. So that kind of makes life a little bit easier, I think, for the consumer.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think you do one-on-one consultations on your site too. I think consumers should go and ask you questions. I saw this ingredient. What does it mean? I like that. I think that's a good way out. Perfect. So tell us about the Just Us cause and how do you give back? What's your learning and how do you plan to pursue the same in future? Do you want to scale that up too, like you're giving back?
I come from the nonprofit world and I'm always diving down a rabbit hole of, Evelyn, what do you think? Can we start our intern program? And we have a bit, but what I think the cause is that we want to give back to, that Evelyn and I have discussed, we each get our 50% of our cause passion to support. So mine is domestic violence and entrepreneurship for high school students. And Evelyn's focus, I think, is more on the cancer research end of things. We like to be nimble enough that if there is a cause that we believe in, that we can dedicate a percentage of a product to give back to that organization or a time period. we both believe that, you don't have to have money to actually give to a cause. If you have a business, you can be clever about it and find a product that there might be a bigger margin on, and then you can dedicate that to a cause.
I was going to say, we've actually done a couple. Also, we've created a model that we're able to scale, which is working with individual organizations to have a dedicated SKU that the proceeds go to, like a horse rescue area with domestic violence and other areas. So there are opportunities and ways. We've talked a little bit about some of the products themselves connected to cancer. And I think that's an important way of, we work the kind of kinks out and how to make it seamless for the nonprofit organization and for us so that the money can really go to the cause.
Love it. Love it. Brooke, your dog and your family taking a liking to Evelyn at first sight. But how do you guys manage conflict? And how have you divided responsibilities? How critical is friendship? I'm pretty sure the answer for friendship is yes. But like, how do you manage conflict? Because as partners, and obviously you are yin and yang, which is the perfect formula, right? Like most of the people that I meet, if I were to think of a partner, are like me, and I know beyond day two, the relationship won't survive. Yeah, just shed light on it.
Evelyn and I are different, very different generations, but we grew up about 15 minutes apart from each other. So in our DNA is a code of manners. And I think we both treat conflict the same way, which is we don't like it. If there's external conflict, if something's coming at us from the outside, Evelyn will deal with it because she's much braver than I am and doesn't dissolve in a puddle when somebody criticizes. But as far as we go, we're really good buddies. I don't think we've had any serious conflicts because we've both been around long enough to see them coming, and we know that a conflict between the two of us is so common among founders that we're really aware of, oh, no, we're not going to let that happen. That's not going to happen. And without discussing it, one or the other of us will always back down or send lots of hearts in a message or go, oh, we'll work it out. And Evelyn is very big on, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's going to be fine. So yeah, that we've sort of decided to not have conflict. Would you say that's true, Evelyn?
No, I think that's a funny way of saying it. I totally agree. I think you asked about friendship, and I think that's nice. I think respect is the most important thing over anything. I'm fortunate and lucky enough that we also, I think, have friendship and love, but respect is the most important thing, and that you value each other. And even though we have different strengths, all of them are really important. And there's areas where she definitely runs the formulation. I definitely run like the business side. There's areas that we overlap on things like creative. And there's things where, but even those differences, like I'm a little bit more visual, she's a little bit more copy. So we align on the things that are important. What's the insight? Like, I never want to put something visual out that Brooke doesn't like or doesn't feel good in, right? If we have pictures of ourselves and I think she looks beautiful and she doesn't, like that picture doesn't go out. Because I wouldn't want a picture, even if she told me I looked good and I didn't look good, like feeling that way. So there's certain things like that where if you know that, but there's other things where I know she's a stronger writer than me, but I know there's certain things that I do better. So it's let me do the part I can do. Let me send it to you. Why don't you do your part? And if there's something that I don't think is right, I'll say it. She'll say it back to me. But usually when we do that, one of us will come back and make a change and bring it forward. Or to Brooke's point, know what are the things that are like worth fighting for and the things that aren't. And we're like a team together. And so it is more that we team up when other things come at us and just talk things out. But I think you have to like let go of ego a little bit too and think about where you're going and what's going to get you there. And you have to have discussions, right? Conflict isn't bad. It's the tension and the anger and the way people manage it. And you should disagree, because if we agreed on everything, I don't know what path we'd go on. We'd just be like yes men and we'd never, right? So it's the differences in our opinion that get us to a new place. So if I'm like, I think we should buy it this way and she thinks we should buy it this way, and we each talk about it, like we might end one way or the other, but at least we're educated on it. We made it purposefully and we weighed it both ways. And I think that's important.
I think too, because we're, in addition to Evelyn's super strong business side, that we're both creatives, and there's things that we do together, like it's really super when we're both working on a campaign together, when we're actually writing together. It's like having a writing partner in a completely different world. So there's a lot of creative that has brought us really close together in producing things, our campaigns, our look, our feel. And it's very fun to do that. So we've got that partnership as an underbelly. It's not just we're business partners. We've got the creative too.
Love it, love it. So let me summarize if I got it right. You have divided responsibilities. Evelyn takes care of marketing, you have formulation, but there's certain stuff that you do both work on together. You do have difference in opinions at times, and you voice your concerns to each other, but you do not step on each other's toes. In 90% of the divided responsibilities, if there is something that you're doing together, you will disagree at times and you voice your opinions to each other. But instead of letting it foster into a conflict, you talk to each other and then you manage it very smoothly.
Yeah. We're in it for the long haul. We're like married. When you get married and you think, or at least when I got married, I knew that unless certain terrible things happened, I was never going to get a divorce. And that's kind of how we are in our business partnership. We've got our eye on the prize. We don't take our eye off the prize. And we know that conflict, certainly at this point, would do nothing to help either of us on a personal level. We disagree when it's fun to disagree and helpful to disagree, but we're never cruel or rude or mean.
Yeah, actually, I think a really important thing, we never look backwards and you never blame, right? So we might disagree going forward. We might be annoyed. We might think someone's doing something they shouldn't be doing or vice versa, or like whatever. But we never go back, right? So if something went wrong, one of us made mistakes. We both make mistakes all the time. I think it's a huge issue. Both of us, right? It's like, it doesn't help anyone to say you did that before or blame you or do those things. It happened. It's done. So together we need to figure out going forward. And if you can't do that for your partner, they're not going to do it for you, and neither of you can be successful. So I think that was when we were going back to our early stuff of like the little things and the big things. Like when the big things come in and it's something like, I used to have it at work, something comes in and it's like, what happened? Who did this? Let's figure out how we got to it. It doesn't matter. You're here now. And both of us care and love this enough that we won't, if we made the mistake, we won't make it again. Like we're not dummies. So like one of us knows if one of us did something. I don't need to be told if I did something wrong. Like I know it. I probably told her, I think I effed this one up, right? But we're here now, right? And I think that's where you get tension in relationships, when you're like bringing it back. And you're like, you did this, blah, blah, blah. I don't even remember. I can't even think of examples of mistakes because it's just, I don't remember, because like they're gone and we're like forward. Because again, it's business and things are going to happen and you're going to do things. And that's just what it is, right?
Like neither one of us would ever say to the other one, you always do that.
Yeah.
That would be the kind of thing that would get in the way.
This one because you messed that thing up last time, or even that undercurrent, like all that's like super unhealthy. So I think that's like a big thing that I'd say for any partnership is that you got to just move forward.
Off the record, you should counsel my dad because he gets stuck. I told you, I said this 30 years back, 20 years back. I'm actually with you. Like that it's not productive at all. Like people should learn to move on. Something I had to learn myself because obviously I'm conditioned by my parents, right? I blame all my shortcomings on my parents. Say I got conditioned during childhood, so what can I do? But anyways, moving on.
But I think a lot of it comes from fear too, right? Like if something's going wrong or like off the rails, you're scared. And when people are scared, they panic and then they look for other people blame or the other stuff. But it's like, if you just pause a second, none of us are perfect. Like we don't always do this right. But if you pause a second and breathe and you think about the solution, start to find the solution, like the panic goes away, the fear goes away, because whether you're angry, whether you're upset, whether like you still have to deal with it. So you might as well just think about that going forward, because I do think a lot of it does just come from that initial fear and not really any feelings for the person, but just this like gut reaction to like the stress of business. Because look, business is stressful. You want to make money, you want things to work, things go wrong, right? Like the initial thing was like, oh my God, this didn't go, what's happening? And then you kind of spiral, and that's the part you want to work yourself out of.
I just noticed your t-shirt says "Just Us," right?
Always.
Perfect. Tell me one thing. Now we'll get into when the going gets tough. I'll buy more. Brooke, to your. I'm thinking of buying more because I think the neck has loosened a bit, so I need to stretch it just to make sure that my chest pops out. So thank you.
Looks
Thank you.
great.
So let's get to the next section now, which is when the going gets tough. Something which has been the theme of this podcast. Every time Evelyn and you have been talking, how tough it is to have a venture, how stressful it is. So, what has been the lowest time in your entrepreneurial journey with JUSTUS Skincare? How bad was it? Did you believe you would overcome, or did everything seem lost? And then there's a follow up question to this. Yeah. Like, was there a time through in this journey till now for you together where it was very tough and you weren't sure whether you'll be able to make it through?
No, there's never been a time when I personally thought of leaving. One of the things that I've learned as a person and also learned through Evelyn, who is from a space of understanding how the big industry really works, it takes a long time to get there. The worst thing you can do is leave. Yes, it gets bad and sad, and you want to go and lick your paws every once in a while. But if you study founders and read biographies of entrepreneurs, then it's pretty easy to keep the headspace of, yes, it's going to be tough, it's going to be tricky, it's going to be sad and depressing and frustrating. So go to dinner. As Elizabeth Taylor once said, pour yourself a drink, put on some lipstick, and pull yourself together.
No, and I agree with Sprigg. I don't think I've really had the low. I mean, look, I came out of a career I didn't really like. I love what we do. I love my life. I'm really happy with all of these things. I think being in any industry, but particularly founder entrepreneur, like you have highs and lows like all day, like all the time, right? Like you have one thing and it's amazing, and you have one thing and it's like kind of crappy, and then you go back but the net is you're pushing forward and getting there. So I think you're always going to have like a range of emotions. There's absolutely nights, right, where I wake up at 2 a.m. and I've just got the most random, real or irrational fear. Like, what if whatever? What if we can't do this? Or, oh my God, there's so much stuff I should be doing that I'm not doing. And here's all the things. And I don't sleep for a couple hours. But mostly that goes away because then you hit something and I get a call from Brooke. And most of the calls are usually like, oh my God, I had the most fantastic idea. I'm really excited. And she's really excited. And then you're like, oh, that is exciting. Great. Like I was dealing with some stupid thing that was driving me crazy. And you called me and it was really cool. And you have a conversation with someone else and it like takes you out of that space, which I think is really important. You never know where you're going to find it. Like you're having a conversation with someone, like, oh, yeah, you know what? I need to like step back, refresh, take a little walk, listen to this kind of cool idea, do something different.
I think that we have some moments. I had this epiphany the other night at 3 a.m. I thought it was the most brilliant thing I'd ever thought of. And Evelyn's 3 hours behind me. So I called her the next day and I said, Evelyn, oh my God, I've got the most incredible insight. And she's like, what? And I said, okay, are you ready? And she's like, yeah, what is it? And I said, climate and menopause. And she's, what? And I said, do you get it? Right? And she's like, can you give me a couple more words? But that's those moments are the things that kind of, I don't know, keep you laughing. And yeah, she puts up with a lot of great ideas.
Was survival ever at stake? When was it and what was the situation like? Was it money? Was it cash flow? Was it something else?
For me, my financial survival is at stake. We are a self-funded business. So at some point, we need to hit a certain level to live the way that we want to live. I don't think in a sort of a global way, survival is at stake, but on a personal level, yeah, we've got a lot in this. And I think one of the harshest moments of our growth was a time when we had an investor that was interested in us, and it was a significant amount of money, and it would have made a lot of difference in a lot of different areas, and we decided to pass on it. And that was very sad, but it was a necessary decision.
Tell me one thing, and I know you will be here for the long term. You'll do very well. You'll scale up. If it ever goes down, will it hit you personally, like financially? Will it be a very big hit on you, like on your lifestyle and everything? Or will you, I mean, it'll be a dejection, like you will, it was something you want to do, but it's not going to hit you personally?
It'll hit me personally. Absolutely. I wouldn't have gone into this and staked some of our retirement money in this business if I didn't think it was going to be a good gamble. It's not like the Kentucky Derby. I know that the risk that we've taken is a pretty solid risk. Evelyn and I together are pretty formidable. Our company is polished and beautiful and tight right now. I think we have as much a chance to um, be successful with it as anybody else. Yeah, it would hit me, but it wouldn't destroy
Yeah, so
me.
there's hell lot at stake here.
My husband has a lot of belief in us, and I'm very blessed that I am married to somebody that has been willing to encourage me to pursue this. And he's very supportive and pulls his weight in this, but it's harder for him to be patient than it is for me because he's not in it on the day to day, and this is not his industry.
That always happens, like people who are investors, advisors, etc., because they're not in the day-to-day activities, so they tend to be slightly more impatient. That's a great point, by the way, that people outside are slightly more impatient than people who are going through the grind of everyday trials and tribulations. What were your personality like every time you hit a roadblock? Or let's say, I know you've not had, Evelyn, you said not for you. Let's say every time you hit a major road bump, like which can get your spirits down for the evening, what are the personality or character traits that help you overcome adversity?
I wouldn't say this is a personality trait, but I think like you have to know what's important. I think when you understand what's really important in life, this stuff isn't that big a deal. It's just not that big a deal, right? Like, I don't know, we're smart. We have people we can lean on. You have people you can talk to. Like, problems can be solved, right? There's some problems that can't be solved. In our business, like, we can solve them. Now, the solving might be painful. It might be slow. It might be easy. It might take money. It might take resources. It might take time. It might not, right? There's different levels. They might take an emotional toll or not. But, like, everything has a place. And so I think for me, that's the thing, is like keeping it in perspective and knowing that everything's solvable and that ultimately what really matters in life. Because if you like, people just get so upset about small things and it eats them up and it's just really like unhealthy. So I think that's the first thing. I think for me, I've always been really self-sufficient and determined. And I think I'm like action-based, task-based, which is like a pro and a con, because I think I move very efficiently through things. I also don't think I spend a lot of time like processing it. So I'm sure from the emotional side, therapists out there would say like, I probably need to feel things like a little bit more. You are who you are. And sometimes you work with your DNA, and my DNA is not totally that way. I'm a move through it process after the fact, but I don't know, maybe me. I don't know what you think, Brooke.
I don't know. I think one of my biggest advances has been the realization that I can give myself permission to just walk away, to just accept that there are some days that you need to just go back to bed. You need to, my favorite things to do to, as sort of escapism, are listening to podcasts, napping, being able to just say, I will come back to this another time. Also, I don't think you can overestimate the power of binge watching with a bag of Doritos and perhaps a nice margarita.
Yeah. And making stuff fun, right? Brooke and her beautiful daughter always play with Winnie at like 5 o'clock or so. And when I'm out there, like we don't change that routine. Like just because we have business to do, we go from the lab to outside, we pour a glass of wine, we throw the ball with the dog, we chat a little bit, right? And we still keep doing it out there. I don't want to be in a life where we're like, we're busy, we can't do that. Like we got to stay in the lab until this thing's solved. No, look, every once in a while you're finishing a spreadsheet or doing something. Hey, we'll be there in 30 minutes. We might as well close this. But mostly we're usually like, all right, outside, let's go. We're chatting. A neighbor drops by. We always get it solved. We get there.
Evelyn is much better at insisting that pieces of her life remain in her life. So she will go to yoga, get acupuncture, take her dogs for a walk. Whereas I'm just like, I can't possibly leave this project that we're doing because I can't focus on anything else. So she's very good at, I think the idea that less is sometimes more, that you don't have to, because you're not spending 8 hours trying to write the perfect piece of copy, that you don't have to do that. You can, it's probably just as well to spend 2 hours doing something that's good for you and then coming back to it and giving yourself permission to do that.
That's so amazing. No, I'm absolutely with you. Evelyn inspires me in that regard. I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
But I am like you, Brooke. So I don't know, in the last 5 or 6 years, I don't think I've ever gone out. Maybe a couple of times. But I do binge watch and I'll have beer or scotch. You have always been a step ahead of me, which was, do you take time out? Do you relentlessly pursue success or work, or do you take time off? And you both answered that extremely well. And it's a learning for me. Like Evelyn, she's, like I said, how can somebody work on a startup and then be in London for yoga and then in LA? And I've seen that she's pretty efficient.
No, I was just going to say, you fill the time you're given. So if you give yourself the time limits, if you give someone 8 hours to do something in 3 hours, they'll give you the same thing. They'll just take 8 hours or 3 hours. If I call Brooke and I say, I need some copy and I need it by 10, she'll send me brilliant copy, right? If I tell her, hey, you've got 12 hours to do this copy, she'll, as every human does, kind of go around, right? So I think it's important to understand, like I would say that we both are relentless in living life. And part of that is the business and thinking about the business and doing those things. But part of it is like doing the other stuff.
I should hire you both for reverse mentoring. I know I worked with you as a consultant on JUSTUS SKINCARE and we are still together. But I should hire each one of you to mentor me. Sorry, Brooke, you were saying something.
No, I was just saying that I think I'm always in it or thinking about it or finding it much more interesting than anything else in my life. And Evelyn is just a very good segmenter.
That's true. That's true. You guys complement each other for sure. Now moving on to the speed round. So you'll give 1, 2, 3 word answers, associations. It's just for fun, but there's some learning there too. So I'll ask you, I'll just throw words or a few phrases at you. And you can choose to elaborate. It's not that you have to stop at 1, 2, 3 words, but it's totally up to you. If you can think of more stuff, because some of this might be stupid also. People say you should never say that, but that's what my personality is, right? If I do sound stupid, I don't mind it, as long as people are entertained. Perfect. So much for digressing. The first phrase is climate and skincare.
Just us.
Wow, super smart. So how we'll play this game is each one of you can take turns. Like first, Evelyn would answer, Brooke, like you both have to answer. That'll be more fun. I haven't done that. Like I always had one founder. First time I have 2 co-founders. So Evelyn said Justus, and I'm pretty sure, Brooke, you will say Justus, right?
Oh, I was going to say on target.
Good, because you'll get more brownie points from me if your answers are not exactly the same.
They'll never be the same.
Perfect.
Never be the same.
What is your favorite movie line quote of all time? I can do a complete one-day podcast on this if somebody were to ask me this. But I know recency applies here. It's the latest movie that you must have seen. So just to make it easier for you. Otherwise, it is a very difficult question to answer because there are so many, right?
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. I'm impressed. I love it. Evelyn?
This is so cheesy. The one I always love is Notting Hill. I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her.
Julia Roberts in the movie?
Yeah. Yeah, and she's like a famous actress in the movie, and he's regular. Everyone sees her as the actress, not as her. Hell yeah.
I'll tell you mine. I know you didn't ask for it. That's why I have this question here. So my latest is from Public Enemy's Johnny Depp. We're having too good a time today. We ain't thinking about tomorrow. I love that line. Favorite book and a quote from the book?
I don't have a quote, but my favorite book is Name of the Wind.
Name of the Wind. Is it like, I shouldn't say it in today's times, but is it like for girls? Like, is it like Jane Austen, or is it like more
No.
Jane Austen?
No, it's nothing like that. That's actually not my genre at all. It is like fantasy, academia, like old school magic, travel, romance. It's not for younger people. It's a sophisticated book.
A tie to Connecticut, like a sophistication. That's what you meant with good manners and sophistication.
I think that probably is one of the signatures of Connecticut. Yes.
Brooke, yours favorite book and a quote from the book?
I don't know if I have a favorite book. That's really a tough one.
Both of us read a ton.
Huh?
Both of us read a lot.
Yeah, we read
amazing. Yeah,
a lot. Would have a hard time coming up with a favorite book. But I can tell you my favorite poet is Charles Bukowski, if that helps.
Sure. Tell me a line or two.
Let me switch that out to I can tell you my favorite folk singer is Dave Van Ronk, and the line would be, "You get no bread with one meatball."
Is it like stingy living?
No bread with one meatball. You're so stingy, you're only going to order one meatball so you get the bread? No, you've got to order 2 meatballs to get the bread. You get no bread with one meatball.
Got it. Perfect. No, I love it. I'll tell you mine. So I don't know if you've heard of a guy called William Somerset Maugham. Have you heard of him? He wrote a book called The Moon and the Sixpence. And he could write something very plainly, but this is how he chose to write it. The book was dedicated to Paul Van Gogh, a painter, I think. Evelyn might know. He says it's when you bully somebody and he cannot get back at you. So he says it's very distressing when the victim does not have the strength of the arm to administer direct chastisement onto the sinner. So that was the time of the verbose English, but fresh in my mind. I read it 30 years back. Bootstrap or funding?
Both.
Start bootstrap and then get funded?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a third option.
Sure.
There's a third option, and that's that you happen to have the money yourself.
Social media? What are your thoughts on social media? Very open-ended question, right? It could be anything.
I look at it more for work than for personal.
Me too. Brooke, you?
I love TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok at all.
There's a lot of people in my generation, and I don't know about other older people, but for myself, I just love seeing the access and opportunity that a platform like TikTok or Instagram offers young people. And I don't mean influencers per se, but people that are dancers or singers or are doing really creative things with it. My day, when I was young, if you wanted to be in the film industry or the television industry, you had to have money and you had to live in a certain city. And nowadays, if you have talent and a phone, you can make something great and make a living doing it.
I love it. You know what I like about TikTok and Instagram Reels and Shorts? Those people, like when I was growing up in my town, who were like, I won't call them weird, but they were funny in their own way, or they would do some little stunts, but they would never get a chance to be on mainstream. They were not like a full-fledged institution or an actor or anything. Though they entertain us with those real life experiences. I love that. Like, it's very real.
Yeah.
Favorite climate and why? I had to ask this, right? It should have been the first question, but yeah.
I think my favorite climate would be somewhere in the low 80 in Fahrenheit, low 80s year round.
Which place would that be?
With a second home, like somewhere in the winter.
Which place would that be? Which would be in low 80s throughout the year?
I think the perfect climate is in the Bahamas, but I don't necessarily want to go to the Bahamas or live there. But It's a generally lovely climate.
England fall girl. I like the 60s, a little bit of sun and some cloudiness, a little bit of dampness.
Like England, that's always blue,
So
right? It's clouded. You said England, right?
I said New England, but London would be my place for sure. London is both my spirit city and parts of it for climate, even though I know people don't like it. I actually like it. I picked up words, but this accent doesn't, which is weird. It's a Connecticutian accent, but
You just need a stiff upper lip. Like T has to be pronounced th, right? Time is time.
Oh yeah, and I've been told I need to open my mouth more and other stuff like that. Yeah, very kindly from British people.
Favorite place and why? See, Brooke, that's why I had two different questions. So I said you lead with the climate. Favorite place and why? Is it still the Bahamas? No beaches? I thought you were going to pick up some. You don't surf.
Probably some blues bar in New York or a comedy club. Or I like all the places. I like the beach. I like the mountains. I love the desert where I live now. It's all, I mostly love being in my house, wherever that is. I like being home.
Love it. I want it all, right? I love it all. Yours, Evelyn?
City, London, but I like to be in a lot of places. I like quiet, introvert, peaceful stuff. So a hike, the countryside, like Italian countryside, like something low key with friends, dogs, and not much else.
Blues is low key, right? You don't find too many people in the bar any which way when a blues band is playing.
Yeah, my first question when we go anywhere, is there a seat? And if there's not, I'm not going. And I've been that since I was like 18.
You don't surf, right? Yeah, you don't surf.
Surf? No.
Clean beauty, your thoughts on clean beauty?
All beauty should be clean beauty. An insistence on clean beauty should be completely unnecessary in the world that we live in.
Well said. Evelyn?
Yeah, I think unrefined, unprocessed, good ingredients.
Perfect.
I don't have anything against refined or processed. I just have something against the sort of pompousness of using the word clean to sell a product that is just ordinary.
So you're trying to say that it's not that they have something special. The other brands also have the same ingredients or similar, but they just try to market it as clean, use it in their marketing, so to say, right?
Yeah, it's like saying natural.
King Cobra's poison is very natural, but it can kill you, right?
Clean doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you are not for the movement of clean.
I am for the movement of clean. It's just that I wouldn't rely on clean to influence my purchasing.
Interesting.
Of course that we want clean. We are clean, but I think basically I don't know, it's define clean. Clean can mean one thing to one brand and another thing to another. And it's like organic. As I said before, there's no certification that says this is clean and that's dirty. I mean, clean as opposed to what? Like overly processed, overly refined, not enough good stuff. I don't even know what that means.
I know this is a speed round, but are you saying that just writing free of parabens and SLS and whatever SLES is not enough?
No, it's not enough. Of course it's not enough. The labels say free of parabens and something that would never even have parabens in it to begin with.
Yeah. It's like some people say free of gluten when it's not an ingestible, right? I see that
Right.
all the time on cleaners, etc. Okay, the last question of the speed round. Favorite ingredient from JUSTUS Skincare and why? And you could do both. You could do a favorite product or favorite ingredient.
She's going to think. My favorite ingredient has always been and continues to be neroli. I was introduced to it at a very young age by a lovely esthetician who was from China. And she was like, this is what your skin needs. I've always had it. And I love the smell. I love the feel. I love everything about it. And we've got several products.
Which ingredient was it? Could you please? Yeah.
Neroli. Orange oil.
It's an essential
And it is
oil.
present in which JUSTUS Skincare product?
I have it in Tighten and Glow.
It's a mist that's in a neroli hydrosol, and it is a big hit, and men and women like it. And it was one of the first things that I made, and one of the things that I sent Evelyn originally. So that was a lucky break on my part.
Excellent.
And what purpose does this mist serve? Like, what problems does it solve? What benefits does it give?
It helps with dehydration. It helps with uneven skin tone. It helps with sagging as much as anything can help with sagging.
Fine line.
And it helps with fine lines because of the peptide that's in it. And what else? I think that's it. It's sagging, age spots, wrinkles, and glow. Yeah. Oh, it's got a little teeny exfoliant in it. So it's one of my personal 2 favorite products.
And all you do is spray the mist? That's it? Wow,
Yeah, you
that
spray it.
sounds like quite a lot, because people use creams and serums for the benefits that you just spoke about. So if a mist does it, like just by spraying, I think that's the reason that it's one of your best-selling products.
I love tamanu oil, or tamanu oil, as they say in the UK.
And you get it from UK?
No, we get it from
Wow.
Madagascar. It also comes from Vietnam, but I like the tamanu from Madagascar better. We happen to purchase it from a Canadian company, but it's a wonderful, healing, ancient ingredient that heals all sorts of skin concerns, from wounds to burns to irritations to all of that. But when you use it in a beauty capacity, it really speaks to elasticity and encourages collagen production, and is very deeply moisturizing without being greasy. It's a phenomenal oil.
Nickname is Green Gold.
Yeah, green gold. It's in our condition. It's in
Lots of things.
it's in many things.
One of our signature
Yeah.
ingredients.
Tamanu oil. Love it. Perfect. We have come to the end of this podcast. It'll be one of my favorite podcasts till date. Obviously, because we've known each other for like over 2 years now. And I know Justice Skincare is a cult brand, which is one of the best kept secrets. I wish nothing but the best. And I know you will scale up. You will do great stuff, Brook and Evelyn together. You're also one of my favorite 2 people in the entire beauty industry. Okay, so any last message you could share with the audience? Any plans that you have with Justice Skincare? Any message you want to give to the audience, listeners of this podcast?
If anybody's listening that is considering being a client of yours, I highly recommend that they do, because I don't know anybody else that's doing what you're doing for early stage companies. Being able to help founders take a step back and find out, demand over and over again, and not give up on you until you've adequately answered the question, what makes you different? And not let them get away with stupid answers. I think that's what your skill is, and that's what you gave to us, and we still hang our hat on the niche you helped us carve.
Thank you. That is so sweet of you. I love it. Also, give one message from Just Skincare to listeners.
I'm always happy to have a consultation with anybody about their skin. Yeah, I think what's happening with Justice Skincare as summer approaches is our encouraging our customers to bulk up on the mists and the products that speak to dehydration. And if they're thinking of backing off on the balms, that they might consider adding a gentle, fast absorbing oil serum to the routine, and still taking care of that dry skin piece of their routine, and just be careful to adjust your routine for the summer months.
Love it. And which mist would you say? The one that we just mentioned before?
Yeah, our Tighten and Glow mist, which is our go-to mist, and we have a rainforest serum it's an oil serum. It does many of the same things that our condition balm does, but it's a bit lighter in the way that an oil serum would be lighter than a balm with butters in it. It's a difference between a body butter and a body lotion.
Got it. Perfect. Evelyn, do you have any message for the audience? You can even give an inspirational message to other beauty founders or people listening to this podcast.
I think if you believe in what you're doing and love it, then it's worth pursuing, and you should take a risk.
Love it.
And thank you very much for the time and for the opportunity to be on with us. We're very appreciative.
Thank you. That was that was quintessential Evelyn. Like, not wasting any time, right to the point. I love it. Thank you so much, Brook and Evelyn. This was a fantastic episode. I went back into the world when you're working together of those ingredients, climate focused skincare, etc. Great memories. I had some vivid memories when you were talking about the stuff that you do, the processes, etc. And I know Justice Skincare is a brand to reckon with. It's upcoming and it's going to be the talk of the town very, very soon. You have been trading cautiously because you wanted to check all the boxes first. Like Evelyn said, you don't want to be another unprofessional looking brand that comes up and then you can find 3 or 4 loopholes in their entire presentation. So I love that. And your site looks amazing, by the way. What a great site. Formulation is obviously amazing with ingredients taken from all over the globe, courtesy Brook's deep dive research. So thank you so much for being on this podcast with me. Absolutely loved it. You guys have fun and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks,
Thank
Rohit.
you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to this What Beauty Founders Don't Know podcast for amazing guests and insights on growing your beauty brand. Visit jumpaccelerator.com and take the quiz to find out how ready you are to make the jump to $20 to $50 million plus dollars. And above all, don't miss out on your free online course taken by hundreds of successful beauty founders. Sign up for your free online course now. Till the next episode.